Master, wardens, fellow pattern makers, ladies and gentlemen. I have a very few short minutes, I've been told, to tell you about a story that should take 51 days, because that's how long it took us to row across the Atlantic. But first, let me take you right back to the beginning and tell you about Row to Recovery. Why, who, and what is Row to Recovery? Well, Row to Recovery started because two very bored captains, ex-captains, were in the city and missed a bit of an adventure. So they got together and they decided to set about to row across the Atlantic. It was initially meant to be a pair, just them two, and they went out looking for a bit of money. They weren't too successful, and they realized that if they recruited some wounded servicemen, they would pull on some heartstrings. And so they did that. And while I was at Headley Court at a routine prosthetic appointment, I noticed a little A5 poster on the wall, and it said, "Do you have what it takes to row across the Atlantic?" And I thought to myself, yeah. It went on to say, more than 500 people have been into space. More than 1,500 have ever summited Everest. Only 470 have ever successfully rowed across the Atlantic. And I thought to myself, well, that's going to take a bit of time. A couple of months, at least. I was still serving then, so I thought to myself, well, it's for a good cause, and it's time out of work. So I signed up. I was 7th reserve. Nothing more was said. You're 7th reserve. I went about my life, and then I got a phone call from Captain Rory Mackenzie, who happened to be my platoon commander in the parachute regiment many years ago. He said to me, "Rory, are you still keen?" And I'd given my word. I'd already said yes. So I semi-begrudgingly said, "All right," not realizing that I'd just committed in that sentence to rowing across the Atlantic. It hadn't sunk in, and I don't think it actually sunk in until we put oar into water in La Gomera. But let me tell you a bit more about the actual race. It's called the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. And last year we had 15 boats, a whole array of people, from a really strange couple that used to just blog and never row, to us, a motley crew of wounded soldiers. The Row to Recovery team consisted of 6 men and 8 legs. There was myself, an above-knee right leg amputation, Rory Mackenzie, an able-bodied person. Because he was able-bodied, he was highly discriminated against. And we nicknamed him the A-Boy. There was Will Dixon, Lieutenant Will Dixon, from the Rifles. Now, Will was a below-knee amputee. Now, in the industry, we call that a paper cut. But wait, what's more shocking is he still gets the full pension. Then we have Neil Heritage, a truly inspirational chap. Wounded in 2004, a double amputee, above knee. Let me just put one fact out there. 76% of rowing comes from your legs. He rowed the entire Atlantic Ocean upper body. What an amazing chap. Carl Anstey, a quite short bloke, who was unfortunate enough to stand next to an ANA soldier who was firing a rocket-propelled grenade in Afghanistan. And that grenade went pff, out the end of the tube and detonated at the firer's feet, killing the firer and shortening poor Carl's right leg by about 5 centimetres. He has a stiletto. I found out today that he's actually had his right leg fully extended. A bit too much now. So his right leg is now 1 centimetre longer than his left leg. So he's quite frustrated, poor old Carl. And then we have our illustrious leader, Ed Jandlin. Again, an able-bodied person. His only disability is that he was French.
It's a big one.
So that's the what, that's the who, but now the why. Why would anyone sign up willingly to row across the Atlantic? Well, I did because it was in aid of charity. All money that went to Road to Recovery would be disseminated across 3 charities: Help for Heroes, SAFA, and Army Benevolent Fund. Our 2 goals of Road to Recovery was 1, row across the Atlantic, 2, raise £1 million for Forces charities. I'll tell you how both of them came out at the end. Now, as I said, the story is 51 days long, but I'm going to break it down into 3 categories and give you a little blurb on each of those 3 categories. Category 1, the hardest part. Category 2, the most surreal part. In category 3, the best part. I'll start with the most surreal. To tell you about this, I need to help you understand what ocean rowing is like. In one word, it's relentless. Utterly relentless. The routine we had adopted was 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 24/7. Now, your awake mind will struggle to commute and to calculate the amount of sleep that you're not getting. You go into a very strange space within yourself. Your awake mind changes. You see things, you hear things. You become delusional. So my most surreal part during that exhaustive time of rowing was at 3 o'clock in the morning. We had our shift. I'd just come onto shift, taken up this position, got the oars in hand, and started pulling on the oars and rowing. You couldn't see anything around you. You could only see what's in your immediate surroundings. There was a little boy sitting to my right-hand side. On the spare oars, he had his arms like this, and his head resting on his hands, and his feet kicking back and forth. And I saw this little boy, as true as day or night, that he was there, sitting, looking at me. So much so that I was scared. Where did this boy come from? I put my oars down, and I slowly, without looking at him, reached over to touch him. It was my life jacket, just clipped up there. I couldn't believe it. In my mind, a little boy was there. I then looked at Alex because his back was facing me. I was about to tell Alex what I'd just seen, and we'd all just shaved our heads before we left. And Alex was growing what's known as a mullet down his back as I was looking at him. I was looking at his back, and hair was growing down to the middle of his back. I reached out and touched Alex. I said, "Alex," and it disappeared. His hair disappeared, and he turned around and he said, "What?" Nothing. I carried on rowing. That was the most surreal part. The hardest part was unfortunately on Christmas Day. Christmas Day was one of the days that we had time off. And for me, it was a difficult day. You lose a lot of weight when rowing. You need to put on a lot of weight before you go rowing. because you're forecast to lose about 3 stone. Coupled with the weight loss and the sitting position constantly in that seat, I had discovered that 5 little pieces of shrapnel in my bottom decided to make their way out. And 2 weeks prior to the Christmas day, I was in agony, sheer agony. On Christmas Day, I self-medicated 150 milligrams of diclofenac sodium and investigated these little pieces of shrapnel with a scalpel and arterial forceps. Instant pain relief once the surgery was over, but not good memories. That was the hardest part. The best part, by far, was the finish. For months, 51 days, 2 months sounds better. For months we had talked about the finish, what it would be like, who would be there, what we would eat. We had all envisaged falling into the arms of our loved one, me, my beautiful Spanish girlfriend. It wasn't to be. It was Sir Cliff Richard with a bottle of champagne, spraying us in the face. He then went on to sing congratulations. And someone said, have they not suffered enough? I'd like to finish by reading a little extract in the book that we brought out. And it's by Alex the Abo. He says, there were quite a few times I noticed Carl's head go down while we were rowing. He was in the stroke position, setting the pace, so I'd had to stay in time, but I'd seen his head drop, and then his arms would go in different heights, and he wouldn't even be squaring the blades in the water. They'd just be slapping on the water. He was sleep rowing. I'd shout, Carl! He'd jump back into action. The ability to sleep row was the norm. Captain's log. Winds have turned northeast, so still running with the weather, but making better ground south. Attempt to repair the autohelm failed. 3 hours shift at night, much better. Position, 25 degrees, 40 degrees north, 21 degrees, 32 minutes west. Distance covered, 56 nautical miles in the past 24 hours. Distance to Barbados, 2,230 nautical miles. If you wish to get the rest of that story, there's a lovely book. Available, cheapest on Amazon. All money from that book goes towards those 3 charities. I can't stress enough how much those charities help chaps like me. Thank you very much.